Welcome to the Conscious Investor. Let's get started. Life always has this ability to bring the people that you need into your life. And the best part about this is that usually it extends beyond you. And today I am joined by someone that I know is going to really reach a lot of you and where you're at and what your goals are, because my guest today is an extraordinary coach and has an extraordinary program on making transitions. And that's just the part that's really going to resonate with you. There's so much more that we're going to unpack here. But without further ado, I just want to say, Gina, welcome to the Conscious Investor. And thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, I'm going to give everybody a little window into how we connected, because I think that how people connect is oftentimes very encouraging to people, right? So I think it was through a LinkedIn post, was it not?
I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it was through Greg Parsons, possibly, because he and I've been connected for years.
I think so. And it was a comment on amazing women, and people were dropping, like tagging people, and there are a few different posts where I'm like, it could have been a few different posts. That's the one that's coming to my mind. But as I was looking through this post and looking through the people, I saw Gina, and this is just on LinkedIn. We're total strangers. And hey, it's a professional platform. And I'm like, well, what is her profession? What does she do? And as I looked at what she did, I said, oh my goodness, this is extraordinary. This is someone I need to connect with, because as you recall, everyone back in December, we had the how to leave and transition from your W-2 job. And there were so many of you that registered for that, over near 130 people. So I know that this content is so relevant, but make sure that you are connecting with people, that you are reaching out. They might be strangers, but strangers quickly become acquaintances and oftentimes even friends. So
I know. And what I recommend too is when you reach out on LinkedIn, always try to do a personalized connection request, even if you know the person. The only time I don't do one is when I'm on my phone and I forget, I tap on the connect and I go, darn it, I missed. And the other time is if I'm sitting next to them at a banquet or a networking event and we're connecting. But otherwise, Tell people why. Why are you connecting? Oh, I saw a podcast or listened to a podcast. I saw your article, whatever. And then get them excited about connecting with you.
That's a great way. Gina, I am grateful for you. I'm grateful, for everything that you're doing. Can you tell our listeners a little bit, because you have a broad spectrum that you work within. So can you tell everyone, what is it that you do?
Yeah. So it's taken me a couple of years to fine tune my niche. But essentially what I do is I help leaders and executives hone their career stories and get prepared to make a career transition. And I do that through a 9-step model that I've created that has, many frameworks within that model. And we work together for generally 3 to 6 months. And usually around the 6-month mark, most of the leaders that I work with make that transition. And we start with them. We start with assessments that unpack who they are so that they can speak authentically about themselves. And then we work our way through their career stories, the key results that they know how to deliver on. And then the people I'm working with are absolutely ready to tell their best career stories in interviews so that the people interviewing them will understand how they fit, how they connect to the role, and why.
I love, you're very succinct. I'm like, you're a living example of exactly what I think you're coaching people to do. Now, what is the value, or what is the importance of maybe segmenting or partitioning out, personal versus how much personal, how much professional? Do people have trouble working through this? And do you have any recommendations on that? What do you include?
I haven't had anyone that I've worked with have trouble with it, because what we're extracting from them on the front end of my program, and I'll give some insight into what that is we're really getting down to how they show up in the world. And the way we show up in the world is pretty similar. You know, if you're an authentic human, you're showing up similarly across all aspects of your life. Of course, you're going to adjust. If you're a parent, you have a 5-year-old, you're not going to be speaking to a 5-year-old exactly the way that you're going to speak to your counterpart at work. Right. But what I use is a career profile assessment tool called the UMAP. So I don't know if you've heard about that, but it's 4 assessments in one, and it's a very quick hit to find out what your top 5 strengths are from StrengthsFinder, your top values that are your values, your motivated and demotivated skills. So the things that really, even though you're really good at something, doesn't mean it motivates you. And if you're in a job where you're using your least preferred skills more than 20% of the time, you will be unhappy. So we unpack like how what they want to do will align with what will really make their heart sing, what will make them want to go to work. And then the 4th aspect of the UMAP assessment is the personality. So most people are familiar with Myers-Briggs and DISC and SDI. There's all these different assessments. Those are personality assessments. And I find if you only take that, you will have a more difficult time explaining how you do what you do, because the StrengthsFinder is the how you do what you do. It's your top 5 natural talents, the gifts that you came to the planet with. And so what I'm doing is I'm helping reflect and mirror back to my clients. Okay, we see your top 5 strengths. You're 1 in 33 million people, according to Gallup, with those top 5 strengths. That's pretty remarkable. So what's the storytelling behind how you're going to show up compared to someone else, compared to the next person, based on that in conjunction with your values, what motivates you to do your work, and then how you show up in the world.
Wow. That right there is just mic drop, because that makes so much sense that it's one-dimensional if you're just taking a single, personality quiz.
Exactly. And so that's why I use that tool. And so your question was, is it difficult for people to do that? No. Once they understand and they have the language behind it, and we make it very succinct. They're taking the assessment. I'm doing a 2-hour debrief. I'm taking tons of notes. I'm recording it. And then I provide them a synthesis, which is usually, page and a half after hours of work together to come up with a narrative. So they have a narrative, but they're not going to read it to anyone. What they're going to do is they're going to extract the highlights. And then at the end of the day, when they get in front of an interview team or a decision maker, or even someone they're networking with, and they say, hey, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Sure. My people are ready. They can do that in 4 to 5 minutes.
That's very powerful. I know that I actually went through a rebrand with my podcast, because while a friend was visiting, he asked me to explain my podcast to his girlfriend. And I was stumbling over my words. And meanwhile, I had this podcast for, a year and a half. And so, I said, well, he's like, and he actually gave me the conscious. He's like, so it's about conscious investing. And for the rest of our hike, that's what we discussed about. Shout out Austin Linney. Thank you so much. So,
great.
It's interesting because the muddied waters, the lack of clarity prevents you from showing up in the fullness of what your capacity. And that's very powerful.
Absolutely. And what's really super interesting about using the UMAP and all the facets of it is when I have a coaching client come back to me and they're evaluating maybe 2 offers. If they're lucky, they'll have maybe 2 or more opportunities. Well, I don't know what to do, Gina. The first thing I do is I go and I pull their UMAP back up and I look at their top 3 values as it relates to the choice they're about to make with work. Because the values are why we would do what we do. And when they go look at the company cultures, the organizations, and the experiences they've had with the people, because the experiences are how they're living that culture, right?
Yep.
If there is not a match with the values that you need to have met, or honored and satisfied, that will make you the most dissatisfied if you make the wrong choice. You'll have a sick stomach. You won't be able to sleep at night. So we're not only marrying up, can you use your strengths? And can you show up as who you are? is it going to resonate with the values you're going to bring every day to the job?
That's interesting, because I was actually going to ask you, does this, when your clients are even applying for jobs, does this even influence which jobs they're applying for and which companies because of the value component?
I think so. It depends on how motivated the job seeker is to do good research in advance, which I always advise. But you can look,
Right.
you can do simple Google searches on like, okay, what is the company mission, vision, values? What do people say on Glassdoor? But Glassdoor is like, 50-50 because disgruntled people go there to air their grievances. But it's also a great way to get ideas about what you can do when you reach out for that networking conversation, like you're trying to get an informational, hey, I read these things about your company. I'm just curious how that shows up for you on the job. Do you have 10 minutes to chat about your company culture? So yes, you can use that on the front end, if you're being planful.
Yeah. Do many people take the time to invest in that capacity?
To that level about values, it depends on how important the values piece is on the front end. Usually what people are aligning is that the job that I'm qualified to do, and do I have the passion to do it? Once you get down the road and you start having the interactions with people, then you typically are uncovering if there's a values match. So I don't know if spending all that time up front is even worth it, because you have to get the door open in the first place. I'm just suggesting that could be one of the door openers to crack the nut open to get a conversation. Because what's the most confusing thing about the whole entire job search process? In my opinion, it is, okay, I've got my brand ready. I've got my stories ready. I've got interview prep. I know how to talk about myself. How am I going to get conversations? Well, and without having to sell myself? Well, it's through informationals.
Just going out and gathering information and creating those connections. That's interesting. I hadn't ever pictured it in that way before, but really it's like no different than a business opening up and saying, oh, I have all the merchandise. I have everything I need. Where are my customers?
Oh my gosh, that's the perfect overlay. What I call it is, and I refer to LinkedIn as your marketing storefront window. So you're showcasing your wares. You walk down the street, you're going to invest in a winter coat, and you're looking in the shops. What is inviting people to want to know more? Come in and try on the coat, right? So you're exactly right. It's you have to get your brand and your messaging together, and you have to know what you offer so you're confident. But then you can have all the confidence in the world, but then feel really weird about reaching out to people. But the problem is everyone has this. A lot of people have the misperception that networking means I'm going to try to call people to say, hey, do you have a job for me? And that's not necessarily how we build relationships. We start with something softer.
So if someone wanted to reach out, and have that soft touch, because you and I are both active on LinkedIn, and I am confident that you and I have both been equal recipients of the hard sales off the very get-go. Thanks for connecting. Thanks. If I would have sent you this message, there's no way you would have come. If I would have sent you this message that said, oh, Gina, thanks so much for connect. I'd love to connect with you. I am an apartment syndicator and I bring all these great returns and I will change your life. And I also have this great podcast, blah, 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 blah. Like, okay. So we both get those type of things and it doesn't feel soft. It feels like, okay, enough. Great for you. I'm happy for you, but I need to cool your jets. What would you recommend to, for people trying to make those connections that are, let me crack the door open in a soft way?
You gave it the perfect lead up, which is you make it about them. Plain and simple. Because as a product and service, I call my clients a business solution. They have their messaging together. They're a business solution, and you're trying to figure out how your business solution now can help that company. So if you go in service of learning for informational purposes and ask questions about what unique problems is your company trying to solve right now? What are the challenges of your organization? So let's say it's a technology organization, what's challenging about your technology, what you're trying to provide internally or externally to your customers. You need to be doing your research so that you can ask informed, smart questions that get them engaged with you. They're telling you about themselves and their work life and what they care about. You don't want to go in with a pitch. I'm a professional with 20 plus years experience in and I would really love a conversation. That's not the way to do it. And it's also very stiff. You don't want to be too colloquial and you don't want to be too stiff.
And there is a balance. So I'm going to be transparent. And I don't think I've ever said this on the podcast, which is really funny. But I was flagged by my financial Sherpa, as I refer to him. And I was flagged. He's like, too many emojis. Cut your emojis. Cut your emojis. And he wasn't saying that in an unkind way. It was one of those like, level up. He knows what I'm trying to do. And he's very successful, which is why
cutting it down, right? Cutting it down a little bit.
And that's what you're saying. You're saying like, there's this balance here. And that's what I'm like, yeah, there's a balance in emojis and all of this. Like, so how do you find that balance and when are emojis?
I think you hit it again. It's feedback. It's feedback. Yes. Unless you try out your product and service, and unless you try out relationship building and networking, then you're not going to get the information you need to adjust. So if you go out and you make mistakes and you're not really landing or resonating with people, then you probably need to look at your approach, right? But until you get out there to get that information, you're going to be stuck. So I had recently a client, 25 plus years experience, PhD, pharmaceutical industry, has built businesses inside and outside, et cetera. And as she went out of the gate with, it wasn't the resume, but it was some of her messaging. I think it could have been the LinkedIn profile. She started to get information that told her, there's some words and phrases in here that are missing that type of audience needs to see. Okay, so that's not something that we freak out about. We go, oh, that's good information, because not one of us has all the information. You ask 10 recruiters what she should have on her LinkedIn profile, guess what? You're going to get 10 different answers, right? So you have to make the best choices for yourself, and then you adjust and modify.
That right there is key. I noticed that I've used that concept of like, look at the feedback, and I'll do what I call, just personal audits and look back. Is this going where I want it to go? What's resonating? What's falling flat? And if something falls flat, it doesn't mean you delete it. That's your reminder. It's like, whatever, it's not going to last. It's the, oh, well, that just gave me feedback as to, what doesn't work as well as other things. But I think that sometimes people get that, oh, I didn't get the feedback I wanted, or what my expectations were not met. Therefore, I'm going to go crawl into my shell over here. And it's like, it's just feedback.
Right. And maybe you don't scrap it all together. Maybe you just modify it a little bit, or maybe it'll work for a different audience. You don't know. But if you're consistently you're not changing anything, and you consistently are getting a certain kind of response, it's probably you. So
it might just be. This sounds like a Jeff Foxworthy almost, except it's not a redneck. It just might be you.
Exactly. And what I would offer to for advice for people who are looking at actual scripts and different ways to approach people for informationals. I just interviewed Steve Dalton, who works for the career services at Duke University for the Fuqua School of Business. And he wrote a book called The 2-Hour Job Search. He wrote it about a decade ago, and then he just came out with a second edition. And because I work with leaders and execs, the book, that first edition, at first wasn't resonating with my clients, because a lot of the networking components of the book, the strategies, are connecting with alumni to find advocates that will help get your resume in front of the right decision makers and get conversations going. Okay, so I'm 25 years into my career. I have extremely loose ties now with any alumni. That feels rotten. That doesn't feel good at all. So
me too.
Right? So the conversation Steve and I had, that it'll be coming out next month, is specific strategies for the Gen X and Boomer job seeker on different ways to reframe what that relationship building would look like. What does the networking outreach look like? How do you build advocacy.
Okay, I have like two questions that we have to get into, but that can we just give a touch point as to what's a gentle way that somebody listening can reconnect? Because I know a lot of my listeners, they're investors, and they're trying to reconnect because they want to serve and help, those that they cared about. They've lost touch. What is that gentle way? I mean, I think I might be almost 25 years out of high school. Like, that's a while ago. So like how do you warm those relationships from high school or college?
It is situational. So what I'll do is I'm just going to think of someone in my mind's eye that I haven't connected to since I graduated from college, and that was 92. So there was someone I'm thinking of who I met in high school, not my high school, at a leadership seminar. Then we were both at Arizona State together, and we happened to study the same degree, and we were on a project together. We were both student leaders, and I really admired her. I still admire her, but I haven't talked to her for seriously like 30 years. If I was to reach out to someone like that, I would rekindle it with the memories of what that relationship was in the first place. Hey, we haven't connected for over 30 years. You popped to my mind, and I am dying to know, how your career progression went. How are things for you and your family? Would you be interested in touching base and just doing a catch up? Something super human and simple.
Human. Wait, I just heard that word. Be human.
Yes, just be a human. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure she would say yes to something like that. Why wouldn't she?
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
And I'm going to also imagine, because she was so awesome, that she's super connected too. So when you think of awesome people in your past that now would have grown an incredible career and also might be great conduits to your next best thing, why wouldn't you try to kindle that relationship? Because our next best opportunity is actually gotten through the second degree of connection. So not her, not the woman I'm thinking of, but anybody else she knows from her vantage point could be the job. There could be a job out there for me.
Oh, that's powerful. That is so powerful. So I could land on this for another 10 minutes, but I want to make sure that there were two pieces that I really wanted to make sure we touched on. And that was, I oftentimes hear people say, in my investing space, they want to leave their W-2 job so they can become full-time investors and entrepreneurs and such. And I always caution people to say, have you ever been an entrepreneur? Do you know what it's like to run a business? You've always worked for someone. And so people have heard my soapbox on that and some of those questions, but I'm very curious, like, what would you say are some revealing hallmark moments where people would say, yep, I'm ready to make this transition, or this would be a healthy transition? How do they evaluate that so that they're not just running from one thing into something different?
That is a meaty question.
It is. Can you see why I said I want to go into that one, but we have to move on.
Yeah, that's a meaty question. Maybe I'll just talk about my evolution.
Yeah.
For me, the center point was it was an itch I could not scratch.
Mm-hmm.
I was deeply moved and motivated to do something and serve in a way that I wasn't seeing in the marketplace. So I think if anyone out there listening is thinking, I've got something unique to offer, but I might just need help packaging it or framing it up, that's when you invest in a coach, and you invest in the right kind of coach. And I'm not talking about me. I'm a career transition coach going from one job to another. I'm not a business coach. In fact, I have my own. The way that I started my business is I hired Mary Henderson out of Australia, and she has a soup to nuts program on how you uncover your unique value proposition, just as I do for career transition, all the way through the moving parts of having an online business. Mm-hmm. So you have to vet. I stalked her for 2 years before I decided to make a significant financial and time investment in doing that. And so what I would say is, it's an itch you can't scratch. Get the help that you need. Get the help that you need. Don't do it by yourself. You're not going to know how to do everything. I don't know how to build a website. I don't know how to all the technology pieces. I have a team. I mean, there's stuff happening and I'm not perfect. And you have to be able to live with the imperfection too, and not beat yourself up. Because most of us who are proud of doing anything want to be perfect. I do, but I'm not. That's for starters. I could probably go on and on.
Well, I like that, and I hadn't ever put it like that, but that itch that you cannot scratch, sometimes I talk to people and it's a matter of, I just want to be my own boss, just to be my own boss, because I don't like having a boss over me versus, and is that really going to be the healthiest place for you to be? Because being your own boss can be a very challenging role to play to yourself all the same.
Yeah, you have to be very honest with yourself about what the moving parts are and if you can stomach it. And then if you can forecast the kind of money you need to make to include the things that make running your business easy. And
I support the different.
And I still struggle. It's been a couple of years and I still struggle. I was begging my husband to be my COO. I'm like, please, because he's a business leader and he knows more than I do. Leaning on my coach. There are other people out there too that I'm following on LinkedIn and grabbing little tidbits and stuff. But really, you need to read the right business books. I have other recommendations for that. I love John Knotts, Knotts. So if any of your listeners are following him on LinkedIn, he's a Forbes contributor. He's extremely great at explaining how to build plans and processes. Very fastidious. So I follow him every single day. So there's people like that, build that into your tribe, build that into your network, follow those people, engage with those people, because you're going to learn from them.
I love that. I love that advice. And it just being in that type of company helps level you up. Oh, love it. Okay. I want to have time for this next piece also, because I agree with you. And so you're listening to this, you can go stalk Gina over on LinkedIn, find out who she's, connected with it, go and look at these, go find people that you can connect with, find those people that are paving that path before you, that they've already done it and you can see the path and you know where you want to go. That just gives you that clarity, a little bit more clarity at least.
Absolutely. And again, I always recommend the personalized connection request. So I brought up a couple names here: Steve Dalton, Mary Henderson, John Knotts. Send them a note. I heard your name mentioned in a podcast. I really want to follow your work because I hear it's really inspirational. That's all you need to do. And they're like, oh, that's super cool. They'll respond and say, well, where did you hear that? And that's how you start the conversation. Then you like what they're posting, if you do like it, because then you'll see more of it in your notifications and in your feed.
Truth right there. Now, before we have to wrap up, let's just go into a few of those steps. Somebody knows they want to transition, and so they want to hire, wow, Gina is someone who, she's going to help me make a successful transition in my career. What are some of those pieces, some of the path, the little pavers along that path that
that I can help you with easily. Not easy going through it, but that's the idea, is serving a place in the market I didn't see. I've got a 9-step model. It's on my website, Gina Riley Consulting. And what I do is I take people systematically through it with flexibility, because sometimes my people come to me and they're like, oh my goodness, I got an interview. I'm like, cool, I can help you do interview prep, but I can't magically create a resume in a day. That's not going to happen because it takes time. So we start with the UMAP career profile assessment. We uncover the top 5 strengths and the values and the motivated skills and the personality. Then we do a leadership assessment, because I'm dealing with leaders and execs, and I need them to be able to infuse leadership language into the way they describe how they lead people and teams. And I use the adaptive leadership model. I've written an article about that that's on my website. And it basically takes all the reading I've ever done and put it into one document, all the 6 principles of adaptive leadership, and what it is about that helps a leader showcase whether or not they can lead people during times of change and transition. Perfect model right now during a pandemic, right?
Big time.
Then the next couple of steps are all about building up the story. building out a succinct way of explaining what your career journey was. And can you do that just in a matter of a couple of minutes? My people can do it because we break it all the way down. We blow it all the way out and have a massive document. And then we break it all the way down into what I call the 3/3 exercise. And they're able to say, yeah, tell me about yourself. They can answer with, yep, the early part of my career, I was doing what? The middle part of my career, I was doing this. The last part of my career, I was doing XYZ. And now I'm uniquely qualified to do this, whatever it is that they're gunning for in that interview, and shifting then the conversation directly into the interview so they can start talking about their skills and their stories. So I help people build up their story. Then I'm either partnering with them to write a resume, or lately, because I've gotten so busy, I now partner with professional resume writers who get things done way super fast, and they work as a partner with me. So it's kind of like getting two coaches in one in my program that way. And then we do massive interview prep. That's like my favorite thing other than the UMAP, getting them super ready to tell stories. Most of my clients will hear things like this. Wow, I've never heard anyone explain what they've done so well. Well, that's because we do good interview prep.
That's so great.
And then we talk about networking strategies. And again, I'm talking to people like Steve Dalton, who are masters at, figuring templates on how to network and frameworks and models. The last thing that I do with my clients is a thought leadership component. I want my coaching clients to land the next job and never need someone like me again, unless it's a teeny tiny tweak on a resume or interview prep. I don't want them to ever worry about their story or anything else. How do you not feel stuck in your future? You do it by showcasing your thought leadership authentically, whatever that means to you. So we come up with the top things they want to be known for, the top things that people come to them for, and then what are the ways that they can showcase that on LinkedIn or written form in articles or getting speakerships, going to conferences, things like that. So we build that up because I want to see my people out there. I want to see them shining, and I want to be like, okay, you're not going to need me again.
I love that you've graduated from the program, basically. You've graduated. You're not coming back. This isn't.
Yeah. But they can text me anytime they want. Like, we're buddies.
Yeah, exactly. And they can tell you all the wins and all the opportunities that have opened up to them. Oh, I love it. I love that process. And I can see the importance of every single component to it, because if you can't tell your story in a succinct way, you're going to lose people's attention. And, now you become off, well, are you articulate? Are you the driver? As a leader, you need to be a driver. And so, telling your story is actually showcasing all those skills, but how that just flips it straight into let's talk about my skills now.
Absolutely. Exactly. Because if you are interviewing with someone who is actually a poor interviewer and they spend 20 out of 60 minutes talking about whatever themselves and the company, guess what? You have 40 now to potentially get across whether or not you're a fit and tell your stories. So it's a dicey thing. And the leaders I'm working with, I really want them to be in tune with their own EQ, reading the room, reading the people that they're speaking to, so that they're landing with each decision maker, and each decision maker understands why they would continue to move them along in the process.
Oh, I love it. Wow. Okay. This is just pure gold. And regardless of what type of, I can see how applicable this is to any career transition that somebody is making. So I love it.
It's true. The process will work for many layers of, of the job seeker. So like when my two boys are in college, so of course, like when they get to the point where they're ready to look, I have like a template. I'm like, here, these are the things I think you should do. You need to know who you are, what you stand for, your unique value proposition. What are your top skills? Did you work during college? Does that apply? What are your stories? Things like that. So it all applies. And what I would say is on my website, Gina Riley Consulting, there is a button where you can download for free a webinar that I recorded. It's 30 minutes and it comes with a workbook. You have to check your spam folder for that. But you can watch that and build a plan based on these components that I've talked about today. So you can print it and sit there and listen to me. It's kind of like a little mini
That's
coaching
huge.
session.
Whoa, that is a huge value right there
really
in and of itself. That's
I've
way
been told
cool.
too much. I give away too much, but but here's the thing. If someone does want to work with me, when they get to the end of that, they're either like, oh, I lack a lot of clarity and I need to invest in the help. Or they're like, this is a great template. I can take it from here. Cool. Great. And then there's a ton of other resources, articles, all that feed and relate to that plan.
That is fantastic. Wow. Gina, as we are wrapping up, like seriously, I hope everyone is understanding the value in that asset on her website. Like Gina, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. You know, as we wrap up, is there anything that you would say, I want to make sure we touch on this, Jules?
Oof, I don't know. We've covered so much. I could talk to you all day.
We really have. We really have. We could record all day. I mean, like I could carry this conversation because it's so fascinating, and being able to share, you know, have this conversation with someone who has curated this level of skill, you know, it's very niched down, and it's exciting when you can talk about, you know, with someone who has a high caliber in a particular area. So
thank you. I think we covered a ton. I guess I do like to give resources, and every single thing that I do, everything I write is all going to be centered around something about career transition, leadership development, etc. So if people want to, you know, follow me, I have a newsletter on LinkedIn too. I put a lot of time and effort into that. I know a lot of people are on LinkedIn and, you know, blowing a lot of smoke. I would say the majority of what I'm putting out there, I've spent, like the articles I put out are you know, 10 to 20 hours worth of work. So it's massive, you know, because you're doing all this on the side of your business as well. It's a ton of work, but if you can see that someone is really giving you value, that took a ton of time.
And honestly, that right there is absolutely true. There's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of smoke out there, but when you find the pieces of value, you latch onto it and like, oh, whoa, that person is investing.
Yeah, it's different. It's quality. Yeah. And so you have to kind of make good decisions and unfollow people that are putting junk in your feed. I do that when I see too much of something and it's all sell. I'm like, oh, I can't take it anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you. Just cool the jets over there. Let's just add value to the space. Let's build people up and give them things that are going to help them be more successful in life and as humans. Oh, I love it. Gina, you've mentioned your website a couple of times, but just as we close out, if you wouldn't mind, tell people, you know, the best ways to connect with you.
Yeah, I keep a pretty low profile on most of the social platforms. It's very, very low. I spend almost all of my time on LinkedIn. So personalized connection requests, say that you heard the podcast, I will connect with you. Because, you know, a lot of people will connect and you never know if it's going to be a sales pitch or not. And so I want a healthy network. And I want to connect with you if you want to have a relationship that way. And then the other is, you know, my emails on my website too, but those are the two big ways. And, you know, I'd love to see and hear from anyone that's interested in making a connection.
That is awesome. Gina, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your expertise, and you're just fun to hang out with. So thank you.
We'll have to do that in Idaho sometime.
For real. Next time you're visiting your friend, just 45 minutes south of me.
I know. You got it. You got it. So beautiful where you're from. It's just so stunning. It's definitely God's country.
It is. It definitely is. I'm grateful. I'm looking at my window. I'm like, I am grateful for these mountains. It is extraordinary.
Yeah, I know. I've looked at them a lot in my time. Yeah.
Oh, awesome, listeners. Thank you so much for listening, and please share this episode with those in your sphere. You know, share it over on your social platforms, or just shoot a text with a link to this episode, because this type of content is definitely going to help. You don't necessarily know who in your life is trying to make that next transition. So don't make any assumptions. Just share this with others so that they have that opportunity to be supported in, you know, taking the next step towards reaching towards their dreams. Until next time, live big, love bigger. Are you enjoying this episode? Where would your life be without content like this? Help spread the word by sharing on your social platforms. And please tag me, Happy Julie Holly.